Hi there, my name is Paul, and welcome to the premiere episode of the Knitting Bear podcast, or vodcast, or vlog, or whatever you'd like to call it. It's a video diary of my journey in knitting. I watch a lot of podcasts. I get a lot from them. I'm a new knitter, so it's really helpful to be able to see what other people are doing out there and learn from them. I watch Sweet Tea No Shade, Needles at the Ready, Fruity Knitting, The Grocery Girls, and of course, whatever Stacy puts out at Very Pink Knits, because as a new knitter, how can you not watch her? It's where you learn a lot. So why do we need one more of these? Well, I kind of look at it this way. I'm a new knitter. I want to share my journey. It is a record for me, and hopefully we can learn something together along the way. Or maybe you can teach me something, which would be really helpful and joyful. So here I am. I'm going to talk to you, like most knitting podcasts do, about what I'm working on, what I've worked on, what the yarn. I'm in love with yarn. Who knew? Who knew that a stash would grow so quickly after 5 months? What's coming in, what I'm going to be doing, and share what I've learned. So there's where we're going to start. A little bit about my background. I have been dealing with fibers since I was a wee lad. I am no longer a wee lad. I am a large man. As a child, and my family's business was a carpet store. Broadloom carpet, which is wall-to-wall carpet, and area rugs. And I learned at a very young age about fibers, because the fiber we use in carpet is also the same kind of fiber we use when we knit. I learned about wool. I learned about different types of wool and where wool came from. I learned about hemp. I learned about cotton. I learned about nylon. I learned about polyester. I learned about olefin. I learned about viscose in all of its forms, and acrylic. And so I know how those things perform on floors. I'm very good at that. I've known how it works. I know how they are dyed, and I learned about fiber from a very young age. In fact, some people say it flows through my veins. I've got fiber in my veins. With that, I transitioned into being an interior designer. So in interior design, we use a lot of textiles, but we don't get to create the textiles, not very often, but we do use them. We also deal with color and texture and scale, all different things that I deal with when I knit. The biggest thing with interior design is it's not HGTV. We design, maybe about 10% of what we do is design. The rest is making that design happen. So there's the creative side, 10%, and then the rest of it is accounting, paperwork, ordering, tracking, all those kind of things that aren't quite as fun and quite as like the things you see on HGTV, where it's like instant gratification. It can take months to make it happen. So I don't get to do a lot of creative stuff. And when I do, I really enjoy it. I like it. But knitting allows me to do those things with color and texture and scale more often. I can create with knitting, and I love that. And it allows me time to be creative. It also allows me a time to relax. It gives back to me as much as I give to it. So that's kind of where my background is. So like most podcasts, I'm going to talk to you about what I've got on the needles, what I'm learning about, what has come off the needles, which is more important, and what I'm hoping to do next. Maybe some of the things that are arriving, because I have discovered that yarn doesn't necessarily come from the big box stores and the national retailers. There are a plethora of wonderful independent hand dyers out there. It's just amazing. And I never knew all the things I could get out there. I mean, we've all walked through a Joann's and seen what's there, But once I started diving into it, it was like, wow, talk about options, talk about beautiful things to be able to knit from. And for me, the yarn is usually where I start. Not always, but usually where I start. I see a yarn and I'm like, ooh, I've touched it, I felt it, I saw a color that just sparked something. It's like, what am I going to do with this? So I look for a pattern that will set off the yarn and say something about that yarn. Occasionally, it's the other way around. I'll find a pattern. My friend Claire and I, we're getting ready to do knit along. We do them all the time. And I do them with Claire because she taught me to knit. She taught me last Thanksgiving. I didn't do a lot with it till about the first of the year, and then I just dove in head first and have not come up for air yet. Starting to create a stash. There it is. It's growing because I cannot help myself. I'm in quarantine, and the internet works quite well, and so does UPS. So we're going to be knitting something together. So the pattern was chosen first, and now I have to come up with yarn, and I think I have something from Blue Mountain Fibers. They're extra, which I've knitted a hat out of. It's called the Man Hat. And if I could find it, I think the dogs have taken off with it. Who knows? I would show it to you today. So there's what's coming off the needles, what I'm doing next, all the fun things that come in, because I'm some form of yarn addict. I don't know that they have rehab for that, but if they did, it would be great because I probably need to go. Talk about questions people ask me, like, why do you knit? What kind of bags do you use, or whatever. People ask me questions. They're surprised, first of all, that a guy knits. But, hey, it's something we all like to do. And then probably talk a little bit about my beasts, my dogs. You may get them coming in. The door's not really closed. And if I close it all the way, they're just going to go crazy. So if you hear the little pitter patter of feet, it's two 60-pound dogs. You may see noses or tails, but there they are. So that's the format. That's who I am. And let's talk about what we all like about knitting, what's on the needles. So I've got a couple different things. Usually, up until about a week ago, I had about 6 projects on the needles, which, dear God, I'm not a monogamous knitter. I had to turn into one because I started my Father's Day present and all of a sudden realized, hey, doofus, Mother's Day comes before Father's Day. So I had something on the needles for my mother that I was working on, but all of a sudden I became a monogamous knitter to get it done. It was a cowl that I've kind of created. I tweaked a pattern and created a cowl. I'll show you a picture of it. Don't have it because obviously Mother's Day was last week. It is, we're now May 12th. So it's not here. She's got it. She loves it. So, but I took a picture of it before I sent it off. So I'll put a picture of it on this video. So then I had 2 other objects that I've just finished. We'll talk about that in a second. So first of all, I have got this scarf I'm knitting for my father. When I started knitting, my mother just kind of decided everything I was knitting was for her, which is fine. I love knitting for people, and Mom wanted stuff. So she's gotten several shawls. That's what she wanted. So I'm like, maybe I should knit something for my father. Like, what do you knit for a dad? So I decided on a scarf, which, everyone needs a scarf in June. And I had this yarn in my stash. It's from, from Barrico. It's their vintage yarn. It's called Vintage. And it's interesting because, hang on, the wrong one. This is Cascade yarn. This is not the Vintage, the Barrico. I'll show you that in a second. This is from Cascade Yarns. It is their color duo in denim. And it is just an incredibly soft yarn. I bought it for myself, but then I looked at it and I'm like, my dad would love this. It's really kind of a term I hate to use, more masculine colors, but he's a 77-year-old man, masculine colors. I don't believe color has a gender. I am a designer. I'm wearing teal. I wear pink. Color necessarily doesn't have a gender. He's a 77-year-old man. Color has a gender. So this is that yarn. It is baby alpaca and merino. And I've done it in the Ribiteo. It's a Ribiteo scarf by Delmore Designs. Keep looking down because I've got it. So this is it. I love the pattern. It's surprisingly simple, but also surprisingly difficult for me because I don't do good with ribs. You would think I would. I don't. The counting. I can count to 1, 2. There we go, 2. I get distracted, so I have to pay attention. once I pay attention, it goes well. And I'm getting much better. The first few rows were like, dear God, what have I done? And by now, it's much better. So it's just a combination of garter stitch and 1x1 rib. It's a simple pattern, but it makes a really beautiful scarf. And I've gone through my first cake. I've got one more to go, and it should be ready in time for me to send to Father's Day. And so that's the first thing that's on the needles. And I just got my Chiagu, and I'm having very much fun with them. So that's in my little project bag. I'll talk to you about these project bags in just a second because I love them. And then the other thing, knitting another scarf. I'm a new knitter. Of course, I'm knitting scarves. I've knitted cowls and hats and shawls, but what I've got on needles right now are scarves. This is the Mistake Rib Scarf by Pearl Soho. They've got a lot of really cool things. It's kind of hard to find patterns that are more geared towards guys. Not that they need to be masculine or feminine, but sometimes we like chunkier things or just something else. So this is really kind of cool. It's a mistake rib, which is helpful for me because it made mistakes. Right now it's on a spare needle because I had to rip part of it out. Something I didn't realize was going to be so important when I started knitting was ripping things out or tinking. I learned how to knit and purl, but didn't realize I had to learn how to rip things out, frog, and tink. So I have. So I had to rip it part way out because I had did a mistake on the mistake rib and ripped it back to where I did it right and then started it back up. This is for my business partner. He asked for a scarf back in January. As you can see, I've gotten a long way since January. And so this is of the Barrico Vintage. This is Barrico Vintage, and it is an acrylic, wool, and nylon blend. And it's odd because I don't normally like acrylic. I sold carpet with acrylic. I know how acrylic performs. And if you think it fuzzes on your sweaters, you should see it on your floors. It looks like you have had a pack of huskies in your house with hair everywhere. And I know because I have a husky. So this is the next thing. So I have these two things. I've got to get it back onto the niddles. Here's my likey little Grove bamboos. It's got to go back onto here so I can finish knitting it, but I got to get Dad's scarf done first. So that goes back into the bag. Hang on. Put it back. Try to pretend I'm organized. Ha! So there's that. So again, really cool bags. Finding project bags that are don't look like purses is a tough thing to do. So hang on, drink. It's not vodka, it's water. The next thing, what I've learned from these things, I'm learning how to pay attention to a pattern. One of the first things I wanted to do when I started knitting was just create. But part of that issue is you've got to learn how to do things. You've got to learn knit two together, make a stitch, purling, knitting, stockinette, how to keep your edges clean, how to make sure your tension's correct. And that took time. But the more projects I knit, the closer I get to that. So I'm not creating quite yet. So patterns are important, and I love patterns, but I have to pay attention. So with ribbing, I am notorious for going knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, and getting all the way through the row and going, oops, and tinking back. I've gotten very good at tinking. Thank God for the Susan Bates little handy tool. Got them in every bag. So practicing these ribbing things with both the mistake rib and the little bit of rib that's in this Ribby Teo scarf is really important for me because I need to be able to do ribbing to do socks. And Claire wants me to do socks. So socks are coming. Oh, here's a dog. So anything I can do to practice ribbing and paying attention to a pattern and not getting so lost and being able to read your knitting. That's a big one for me. Read my knitting. I've gotten to that point where I can. This yarn's a little tough to do, but I've gotten better with it. Okay, what else do I have on the table? A finished object. I was turned on to this pattern. It's called the sock head. socket hat by Kelly McClure. And I was watching Needles at the Ready, and Ray was doing one and had done another. And I'm like, wow, I like that hat. It's slouchy. I've never worn a slouchy hat. And I've learned a lot from doing this. It was my very first time working with fingering weight, which is itty bitty, but my stitches were fairly even. First time working with such small needles, I used a US 2 on this. And because I was working on the mistake rib scarf at the time I started this, it's really interesting because my ribbing, there are spots where it's absolutely perfect ribbing, and then there are spots when I switched into mistake ribbing, and I'm like, I didn't notice it until it was too late, and because it's such small yarn, I said, screw it. I'm just going to keep going. It's a hat for me, and I'll make it work. It also reminds me to, every time I look at it, to pay attention to what I am knitting. So I love this hat. Let's see if we can put it on. There we go. Well, or not. There. Now I've got more 5-head. It's not a 4-head, it's a 5-head. There's at least 5 fingers there. So I like it. It's my go-to, like in the quarantine when I've yet to shower. I put it on and I can take the dogs for a walk. It's no big deal. But it's the socket hat. I'm going to make more of these. I really like them. I've got a lot of fingering weight yarn. So I'm going to make more of them. I really enjoy this hat. It's just a fun knit. So there's that. And off it comes. And more with my quarantine haircut. By the way, this was made out of a Koigu sock yarn. 75% merino, 25% nylon. And I love the color. It was the very first fingering weight yarn I'd ever purchased, and I really like the color. I like cool colors normally. So the other finished object, I mailed them to my friend Sarah yesterday. She's not been feeling well, and so I made her a shawl. She's always cold. And I also then surprised her with a hat. This was our last knit along with Claire and I. It was the Doppelt hat from, Stacy Perry from Very Pink Knits. And I'll show you that's what it is. It's a 2-sided hat. It's a really cool hat. It's a reversible hat. And you knit it from the crown on one side down to the brim and keep going from the brim to the next crown. And it's supposed to start off as a colorwork hat. And it was really, I love the colorwork. I fell in love with colorwork. I was using this KPC yarn. It is called Glen Cool. This is their DK weight, and it is a mix, 50-50 blend of merino and cotton, which is really kind of a different blend, but the stitch definition, and it's just luscious. It's beautiful to work with. So I did the hat in all pinks and grays because Sarah wanted pinks and grays on her shawl that I made for her. I will show you pictures of the shawl. I'll talk about the shawl next time. But it's a chunky wonky shawl, and I got very creative with it and enjoyed it. But the Doppelt hat is supposed to be colorwork on one side, cables on the other. Well, the cables were giving us fits, at least me fits. And rather than getting so upset over cables and never wanting to do a cable again, I decided not to do the cables. And I did more colorwork on the other side. I went on the internet and found a pattern that fit within my number of stitches and did a second side color work. And it turned out really pretty. It had snowflakes and was light pink. I'm going to put a picture of it because I took pictures before I send it. So I'll put a picture of the video so you can see what the finished object looked like, what the hat looked like. And it turned out really well. I was really as excited. I was proud of myself that I was able to take a pattern and change it and still make it work, which was really kind of fun. Too much talking, not enough drinking. So I made my own hat after that. Sorry, Stacy, but I love your pattern and I love learning color work. It was really fun and I can't wait to try it again. So those are my 2 finished objects. All the other shawls I've made, except for are with my mother. If I can find pictures, I'll show them to you. And I'll try to find I'll show you the man hat on the next one. I'll do the chunky wonky shawl and the man hat. Ooh. exciting. So now I've got 2 projects, and I got to come up with something else. Claire and I are going to do a cabled scarf. She's insisting that I learn how to do cables, and that's the only way you're going to learn anything when you're knitting, is to not be afraid and to dive right in. If you sit there and just do garter stitch all the time, which is fun, it's great for TV knitting and you don't have to think about it, you will have fun and you'll be relaxed and you'll enjoy yourself. But if you want to progress in how you knit and what you can knit, you need to dive in. So the next projects I'm kind of thinking I'm going to do the cable scarf, and I just ordered the yarn today for that. Blue Mountain Fibers, their extra yarn. I did the man hat in that, and I loved it. It's baby alpaca and merino. And seeing as I've knitted absolutely nothing for myself, except for the 2 hats, I'm going to knit the scarf out of that yarn. That has to come in, and that's when I'll start that. And I've also ordered some yarn from Ted Knits UK. He makes beautiful yarn. Another one of these independent hand dyers. I got turned on to him from Sweet Tea No Shade. Scott is using them for some socks he's making. And I absolutely fell in love with one of his colors called Glacier. And as soon as it gets here, I'll show it to you. And I'm going to knit a sweater out of it. Figure I might as well do a big project. So I've got a scarf, a sweater, 2 more scarves, and who knows what else. I'll probably do a hat because hats are quick and easy and I just like them. They're fun to knit. And I've got some patterns I want to try, and I've got lots of yarn back there that I need to do something with. So that's what I'm hoping to do next. We'll see how that goes. So that's that. So what else has come in? Michigan surprisingly has a lot of really cool independent dyers, and they're all over the state, and they do dyeing, they do hand dyeing, and I've been looking into them because I enjoy the uniqueness of that yarn. And one of those is the Plucky Knitter. And she's in Hastings, Michigan, which is really close to where I grew up. And I fell in love with her yarn. She's got some really nice bases. Like this is her Yakety yarn. Yakety is made from yak. It is so soft and so beautiful. I'll open this one. Why not? Let's open it and see what we got. Oh, the dogs are growling. Ugh. So let's see what this is. Unveiling. So, isn't that pretty? We got rid of the dog. He's still growling because I think UPS just dropped off some stuff. So that's one of her things. That's Yakety, and I just really like it. I've got a skein of that. In fact, I think I got all Yakety. Oh, no, I got Beauregard. I'll open Beauregard too. Beauregard is cashmere and yak. I've become a yarn snob. I love natural fibers. I just like how they breathe. I like how they clean. All the rugs in my house are wool just because I know how wool performs. But look at that. And I have to come up with something for this. But that is just... I'll hold it back so you can see it. And it is so soft and it's so pretty. And there will be something made from this. And it will be for me because I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm loving exploring the dyers in Michigan. And if you get a chance, look at Plucky Knitter. She has some gorgeous things. She's on Instagram. Many of you probably have already heard of her. And so take a look. Great things. I've got some from a company called Why Not Fibers, and I'll show those to you next week. And then I'm also looking at some other yarns from up north. If you're not from Michigan, you don't know what up north means, but it means the UP, the Upper Peninsula, the Upers, and she's got some beautiful yarns also. I have to slow my roll and stop buying so much yarn and knit more. So we'll see what I can do with that. That's what has arrived. And I'll probably have more next week. I'll probably have the extra next week and I can show that to you. So that's what's going on there. And then someone asked me today about project bags. And project bags for guys are tough. Just ask. I watch the guys on Needles at the Ready as they're trying to find project bags. In fact, well, that was a fun coughing fit. Not COVID, just coughing because something went down my throat the wrong way. So I've got a couple different types of project bags. I've got these little baby bags. They're from Amy's Babies, and they're really great because they can hold a ball of yarn and a small project, or like in the case of my mistake rib scarf, which I've got in here. I've got the scarf and all the yarn, plus I use the other bag as a yarn bag, so it keeps the yarn, that my working yarn, separate and clean and away from all the moose hair. Moose is the husky, and she seems to get hair on everything. So I love these bags. They're made in Colombia, and they're all natural fibers. Oh, excuse me, made in Guatemala. They're 100% cotton. They have flat bottoms. They're all native kind of world kind of patterns. They're kind of gender neutral. And the bigger bag, they have drawstrings, which are nice, and they have pockets on the inside of the bigger bags, which are nice, so I can organize things. So that's my normal go-to bag for smaller projects or medium-sized projects. Then I have my big canvas bag, which I love. I wouldn't mind if they came in other colors, but this green canvas is fine. I like the leather detail on the handles, and they have pockets in a zipper compartment on the inside. So with something like this, I can put needles, notions, and things like that, and then I can take a project, put it in here, and away I go if I want to travel with it. If I'm not going to be doing it in my living room, I can take this, put it in the car, and away I go. So there's that. And then finally, I have my gargantuan bags. Again, canvas. They don't look like purses, which is really, really nice. That's the hardest thing, is finding project bags that don't look like purses. Not that I mind carrying a purse, and not that I think that project bags need to have gender, color. Things are not feminine or masculine. We make them that. But I love this bag because it has all these pockets on the outside, so I can store all sorts of things. And then on the inside, there's a lot of space and another little pocket where I can put needles or other accoutrements. And I really like this bag. And in fact, I'll probably use this for sweaters. I've got 2 of these, so I'm prepared. I just didn't realize how much stuff I was going to have to buy to knit. But it makes life easier when you buy things or have the proper tools to do what you like. So those are what I use for project bags. What do you use? I mean, what are you looking for in a project bag? Guys, what do you like to have in a project bag? So that's something you can add in the comments if you're watching this. If you're watching this, thank you, by the way. One does not expect to be watched, but is always grateful when we are. So that's the end of this first episode. I hope you've enjoyed my quick tour of my own knitting life. And I hope that you've learned something, and I hope that you guys can teach me something. I hope you can become part of this community. What I've liked about knitting the most so far is the community that it is, and the fact that everyone knows each other and helps each other, and there's no competition. It's all about the joy of the fiber and fiber arts and knitting and crochet. If you happen to crochet, great. I wish I'd learned how to. My grandmother knew how to, and I never asked her to show me. So I've learned how to knit 5 months into it. So stay safe, stay well, make joy, smile, and keep knitting. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks.